Good day. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show. It's my weekly opportunity to get everything off my chest, cover a few of what I feel are the top stories of the day, interview some interesting people, and, solve the world's problems. We pack that all into 45 minutes. Thanks for tuning in. It's a beautiful fall day out there for folks in Alberta, maybe everywhere. I don't know. We didn't get much of a summer, but I can't complain about the September so far. I mean, I'll complain about all sorts of things, but I won't hit on the weather today anyways. Another good show coming up here in a bit. My guest coming on is school board trustee candidate Jennifer Stewart. And I know people say, oh, school board trustees. Well, look what's been going on, guys. We've got porn showing up in school libraries. We got a school board and open rebellion up in Edmonton. And whose fault's all that? Well, actually, it's ours because we never pay attention to those school board trustee elections and let the nutcases get into power. So Jennifer's going to share a lot with us on how that works and what's going on, what her campaign's on, and maybe, encourage more folks to seek it out. So perhaps we can get a better crop of trustees in there. We'll see. All right, let's get started on a policy thing. What's got me wound up right now? Mark Carney, was announced with big fanfare his $13 billion housing initiative, and it highlights everything that's wrong with the Canadian system and why things aren't going to be improving under the Carney government. I mean, to begin with, it proves Carney's claims that he's going to streamline the government and reduce the bureaucracy to be hollow. The Trudeau government nearly doubled the civil service over 10 years. Carney implied the growth was unsustainable and he's going to get the bloat under control. But then he announces a new agency was going to employ hundreds, if not thousands, more civil servants, not one of which will swing a hammer to actually help build a home. Speaking of efficiency, the estimated cost per unit under Carney's plan is going to be over $3 million each. Affordable indeed. Carney dared to use the term austerity when referring to his upcoming budget, but he keeps spawning new spending initiatives of the scope like the housing plan. If he keeps doing that, he's going to blow by that record $100 billion deficit that some people are predicting already. He's making Trudeau look outright miserly in comparison. Now, the housing initiative lands 100% outside of federal jurisdiction. It's not the role of the federal government to build homes. It never has been, nor should it ever be. The provinces are responsible for housing, and even then the government should only be creating the environment to facilitate home construction, not building houses directly. The federal government's pushing ever more deeply into jurisdictions where it doesn't belong, and it only creates more regional conflicts and inefficiency in program delivery. The federal government spent over $6 billion to develop a website to make government services easier to access. This is how good they are. They've been trying to build this site for 8 years now and estimate it might be fully available by 2030. The same government took a pipeline that should have cost $4.5 billion to build and ballooned the cost to $34 billion while delaying the construction for years. Do you really want them to take over housing too? I recently posted an image of a sea of decrepit housing projects from the Soviet era on X, along with a comment on how this is what putting the state in charge of housing is going to lead to. I was kind of distressed by how many young fools got upset and made the case that such housing was wonderful and how the communists ended homelessness. They also ended over 100 million lives, but who's counting? If they're dead, you don't need to house them. It's frightening to think we have an up-and-coming generation who are truly clueless about the horrors of communism and think the trade-off between general prosperity and freedom is worth it if it came with what they think is free housing in a concrete block and slum. Also lost upon them is the rationing and misery that came with state housing. Waiting lists were part of the game in getting a home and to get repairs. Bribery was usually the order of the day. These modern-day Marxists, they kept making the case that government-built ghettos are still superior to the tent cities that grace every city in North America. Look, people risk their lives to escape the hell of communist nations, but that's been forgotten. If it was so damn great, communist countries wouldn't have had to lock their citizens in. Also ignored is that those tent cities are due to leftist policies that led to the closure of mental health asylums and permissive drug use enablement policies that fed an opioid addiction epidemic. If we took all those people from tent encampments and put them into housing without treatment, those housing complexes would become drug dens and crime hubs. Kawartha Lakes in Ontario, and boy, they keep coming up, proved with a catastrophic experiment when they put a bunch of addicts into subsidized housing. Look that one up, guys. They tore it to shreds. And it's not to say that people on the streets don't need housing. But we can't pretend the lack of housing is what put them there. Most of them are addicts and have mental health issues, which need treatment in secured facilities. And there are folks who just fell through the cracks and missed a couple rent payments. They're screwed up. North American projects weren't much better. They're crime-ridden slums, which can be seen today in most major cities. Look, creeping communism is just as insidious and damaging as the communism that came quickly through revolutions. If we let the government incrementally take control of housing as it has with healthcare, we can look forward to the ration substandard delivery of housing we already enjoy with hospitals. We mustn't let the government get there. We need smaller government, lower taxes, and fewer regulations if we want affordable housing. If we let the governments take over, we're trying to cure the disease with what caused it in the first place. If looking back on communism is it doesn't offer a stark enough example of what happens when government takes control of housing, check out an Indian Reserve. They offer a contemporary example right in our own country. Look, if you want good quality, affordable housing in Canada, the housing must be kept as far from the government control as possible. All right, well, that's what's got me pissing on today. How's it going, Dave?
Going well, Cory. You've got the commies all upset at you.
I do. Boy, are they ever flooding my timeline on X over that. They don't like that.
Yeah, you were telling me some incredible numbers you're getting on X.
Yeah, it's like 4 million impressions in the last couple of days on that one post alone. They're very upset at my exposing their ugly concrete jungle housing as a failure. They're saying it's one of the beautiful things the Soviet Union did. Of course, none of these guys, I think, actually lived in them.
No, I don't think so. Hopefully the commies keep going and make some money on X for
there's some of the irony. I make money off of X. Yeah, so as these guys keep pumping it up under this wonderful capitalist system of X run by Musk, they're just sending me more money. So keep it up, guys.
Keep it up, guys.
Bring the hate on.
Hey, I got you a present.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, no. I can only...
Look at this, Cory. Look at this thing of beauty.
The sea chickens.
Thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Now, just for those who may have missed it, why don't you sort of remind everybody what happened on the weekend?
Well, my Steelers played your Seahawks on the weekend at the Steelers Stadium, and the Steelers had their asses roundly handed to them. I won't make any excuses. You know, you try to say, oh, well, at least there was this shining aspect of it. No, the Steelers stunk on every level. The defense stunk, the offense stunk, and the special teams did a real special stinker there. So, yes, your Seahawks soundly defeated the Steelers last weekend for the last time.
I will spare you the shame of forcing you to wear it during your show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, my hair's my hair's terrible. Oh, whatever.
There you go. So
I knew I had to eat some.
Go Seahawks, go!
Seahawk or something over that.
Don't eat a Seahawk. Busy day in the news. We got a BC teacher suspended. He got involved with a female student. Ended up sending her over 1,000. I guess they had 1,000 phone calls in just a year. So he's been suspended for 15 years. Good riddance to him. City of Calgary budget details released today. Cory, it's not going to shock you to find out you're going to have to pay more.
Gee.
Pretty well. No, actually, you don't have to pay at all, do you? You're in Prentice.
But I'm going to feel for you guys.
Yeah, so I have to pay more, 5.6% on property taxes, and all sorts of other charges going up and up and up, and it's going to be an expensive place to live. We've got a story on the federal dental care plan. It's already a boondoggle. They spent $500 million just setting it up. $500 million just to set the thing up.
But and the bureaucrats who are setting it all up, they have full dental coverage and won't have to use that program to go get their teeth fixed.
No kidding. And I wonder what sort of IT contracts they've been using.
It ties back all into that same thing. Like I was talking about with government housing, you can't let them run this stuff.
No.
It only makes bureaucrats rich. You don't get anything in the end.
And speaking of IT, it's now being revealed there are 9 RCMP probes into IT procurement at the federal level, all basically coming out of the ArriveCan scandal and the GC strategies. So there's probably going to be some criminal charges laid eventually.
I'm tired of getting robbed.
How much do you spend a year on shoes?
Me?
Yeah.
Not much. Maybe, this is me. I'm pretty cheap. $150, $200 maybe.
What about Jane? Last kind of female perspective.
She's pretty modest when it comes to that. Maybe a few hundred, I guess. But,
well, if you're the Governor General, you can spend $1,100 on shoes. I got a story out today about her regal spending, shall we say, and it's quite outrageous. And the Bank of Canada today cut interest rates by a quarter, down to 2.5%. So let's keep that downward trajectory going for when I have to renew my mortgage next year.
Then they
they can do whatever they want. And there's going to be big news at 1:00 today out of Calgary Police Headquarters. Our David Winnick will be there. They're touting perhaps the largest drug bust in Alberta history. And it's all sort of seems like all across North America and the United States. We've got people here from the DEA, Toronto Police. So it's should be a big press conference, and we'll have all the details.
Good to know. Yeah, I heard you sending Dave out to check that out in there. I didn't know what that was about. So
Yeah.
Be quite
Should be good.
Right on.
And who do your Steelers lose to this weekend?
They will be playing the Patriots this weekend.
Oh.
And the Patriots stink these days too. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that Tomlin is whipping a beating at least into. And again, I'm ticked. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat things for this year. They've got the most highly paid defense in the entire league, and they look like high school football players last weekend.
I think I picked them in the pub pool for this week.
So yeah, I think maybe Tomlin's good for that. He'll lay a beating into them, and maybe they'll perform.
If it cheers you up, I was 1 yard away from winning the pub pool and $400, but Houston could not score from the 1 yard line. So it took a bit of sting out of these celebrations.
That doesn't cheer me. I'd rather you'd still had your funds. I wouldn't feel as bad when I mock you when the team turns around later on.
Well, when you're sitting in your laser boy watching the game, feel free to wear the Seahawks hat.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind. Right on. Thanks, Dave.
You bet.
All right, that is our news editor, Dave Naylor. Bad taste in football, but an excellent nose for news, guys. And the reason we've got Dave, the other Dave down there at the police conference, and those reporters you see scurrying around behind me in the newsroom back there is due to subscribers, because we are an independent news outlet. So, guys, if you haven't subscribed yet, $10 a month, $100 for a year, westernstandard.news/subscription. Again, you used to pay for a newspaper subscription without thinking twice. This is how we keep these things rolling. It's not like the old days where classified ads could keep everything going for you anymore. If you've subscribed, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And if you haven't yet, get on there, take one out. Let's see. Just check some of the comments here. I see Debbie from Tabor and, Jacqueline saying, why would anybody believe Carney would cut anything? I know, but Eastern Canada seemed to believe what Carney was going to do. The state of Alberta person saying, wouldn't houses, if given, be given to whoever are sober people who didn't commit any crimes? Well, I doubt it. They tend to make these, programs, and they're broad and they're not focused and they're not targeted. And that's the discussion. People are looking for simplistic solutions for complicated problems. I've talked about that on here a lot. We have a huge addiction epidemic. We have a huge problem of people with serious untreated mental health issues who are on the streets. But if people think that just building houses is what's going to take care of that, houses are needed. But the issue is treatment. These guys need to be taken off the streets. They need to be brought into a secure treatment center and hopefully successfully become ready to move into housing, because they aren't right now. People are being naive. Go to a tent city, because I know you listen to some apologists. They say, they're people who are just going to make the rent or high costs of housing or couldn't find a job. No, guys, they're junkies. Let's just not beat around the bush. And if you just took them and stick them into a house, all they're going to do is turn it into a drug den, strip the copper wire out, sell that, probably burn the place to the ground, and end up back in their tent city within a month if they survive. I'm not saying that like they're animals and awful people. They need help. But we're being stupid if we think the reason they're on the street is for lack of government building housing. We do want to make housing more affordable. And I tell you, the last way to make it affordable is to get the government building it. Just like Dave brought up, we've got a dental program that's supposed to give everybody free dental. Guess what? Who can afford that? Because no dentists are offering it with that program, and they've already spent $500 million, though, in the administration. Paperwork won't fill your tooth, guys. You need a dentist to do that. But you're not going to get one if the government has it. It's just like the government has the monopoly on healthcare. How's that all working out for you? Great, as long as you can survive long enough to get through the waiting lines. Look, we got to learn. And these issues, they take a little more in-depth looking than rather than just saying, well, let's just get the government to fix it. It's usually the last solution. The problem is it's not a solution. All right, well, let's talk about solving other things. This is our chance to impact the government. We got a municipal election coming up in Alberta, and that means we're voting for our county reeves in my case, and councillors and mayors and councillors in other towns. And the other one that's always forgotten or shouldn't be is our school board trustees. And God, guys, the school boards are going nuts in some places. Some of the stuff going on in Ontario is hair-raising. And I think it's because we haven't been paying attention. So I'm happy that we've got Jennifer Stewart is running for Wards 6 and 7 in Calgary for the Calgary School Board to put your hat forward. Actually, I'm going to get this thing off the counter. Jeez, Dave.
Thanks so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming in. And I know, unfortunately, with a lot of people, as soon as school board comes up, it's a school board. But then everybody gets outraged when the school boards do something poorly or don't do something at all. And, whose fault is that but our own? So I appreciate you stepping up. I mean, this is not some high profile, high paying political sort of role or job or something. The only reason a person would run for a school board is they have goals in mind that they want for the schools. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah,
And,
thank you so much for having me on and talking about it, because you're definitely right. It's definitely not given enough attention, and also people really aren't sure what a school board trustee does.
No, and that's what I wanted to ask you first. So maybe if you could kind of break that down. What is the responsibility of a trustee and the role?
Yes, absolutely. So in Alberta, a public school board trustee is an elected official that is really there to govern the school division. They don't run the day-to-day operations of schools. That's up to the superintendent and the people that work under the superintendent. But they govern the school system to make sure that it's serving students efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, and it's kind of the conduit, I guess, between the parents and citizens and the administration who really run the nuts and bolts, right?
Yes, absolutely. So the school board it does quite a few things, and then there's also things that I've that it can't do publicly. That's part of the what the province sets, or also up to the individual schools and teachers and the superintendent. So they set policy for the school division. They make sure that it aligns with provincial legislation. They also establish the mission, the vision, and also the priorities for the education of students. Probably the biggest thing that they do is they oversee the budget. So for example, this year for the 2025-2026 school season, it's a $1.67 billion budget for 146,000 students in over 250 schools. So that's a really big part of their job, is making sure that they approve the division's budget and make sure that the funding is allocated responsibly for students in schools.
Great. And then the other part is, I mean, as an advocate and a local representative, the needs in school divisions are different from division to division. I mean, you get into a higher New Canadian part of the city, there are going to be different challenges with ESL and things such as that. Or inner city, you have some schools that are underpopulated. New suburbs, you got schools that are don't have enough space. So I think it's important to have representatives from those different areas rather than a central person to speak up for
It
that.
is, for sure. And it's actually in the Education Act, the elected school board trustees do have to think they're an advocate for all of the students and the community members, parents, and community stakeholders, but they do advocate for all the students across the board in the division as well.
Yes, you have to look at the broad thing, but at the same time, it's an advocate for your local area that might be underrepresented or different needs or views.
Yeah, and school board should really be engaging with the community, especially with their constituents. Community engagement is really important. So part of the trustee's job is to go into schools when they're invited, and go, meet with parents and stakeholders and engage the community.
Great. Before I get more specific into your platform, which I want to get into, but I mean, we see issues with the system, the trustee system altogether, and it seems to be coming to a peak in Ontario where they're actually talking about eliminating the role of school board trustees, which I think would be a bad approach. It'd be a loss of a means of accountability. But when you look at some of Ontario, there's been some crazy things that have come out of some of their school boards out there, which you can understand why the provincial government maybe is saying, we've had enough with it. What can and should we be doing provincially to make sure our school boards as a whole are effective and a worthwhile endeavor for people?
Yeah, and that's a great question. There is a lot of value in having a local school board level. I mean, they're closest to the students, they're closest to the community, and they should be advocating for what the community needs, because the community needs in Calgary may not be the same as Edmonton's. It's not going to be the same as rural communities. So you do need people at the local level who know what's going on in the community, engaging with the community, and knowing what the community needs in order to advocate for them effectively. And I'm not sure that somebody at the provincial level, most definitely not at the federal level, is going to know what's best for students in Southwest Calgary.
No, absolutely not. So getting on to your campaign, so what's driven you? I mean, a person usually will have a reason. What is it that you want to bring to the table then to change or adjust or impact within the school board?
Yeah, absolutely. So my kids aren't in the school system yet, but they will be soon, and they're my primary motivation for running. I I'm not happy with what's happening in public schools right now, and the status quo is not working. The other thing that kind of pushed me towards running was when I had my first kids, I had twins first. I joined a mom group, and I'm very lucky to still be close with this mom group today. But they're all CBE teachers. I'm not. I'm a small business owner, but I've spent the last few years listening to them on the teacher side. I've always been interested in the policy side, but now that I've been hearing the teacher side, there's a lot more going on in schools that really needs to be addressed, in particular by the board, and it's just not happening. Teachers are not happy. I mean, everyone can see that already with the strike happening, but there's a lot more to it, I think. And I think the school boards haven't been supporting teachers the way that they should be, and that needs to change.
So, again, in supporting the students, then, in which way do you feel that the board needs to be doing such?
Well, there's quite a few different things that the board can do. So the board can't implement curriculum that's set by the province, but the board can help implement different ways about how the curriculum is taught. For example, the number one issue that I hear from teachers is about classroom complexity, and that's something that the board can address based literally just by funding, right? The current funding model where the students with complex needs have to be assessed in the classroom and have their needs assessed and what kind of stuff they're going to need for the year by September 30th. And then the province provides the funding. But if anything happens after September 30th, those students are not supported because the funding has already been allocated. And to me, that's an immediate failure to any student that's moving around after September 30th. They're not going to have the supports and stuff that they need. And besides that, there's not enough supports going into the classroom right now. The money really needs to follow the students. And I think right now, it's not doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, union negotiations and such are outside of the purview of a school board, though you're speaking of things as a whole. I mean, there's been some of the battle. People say, okay, we need more resources in the class. But if you give a certain amount to the teachers, there's not going to be much resources left any longer. Mm-hmm. We can only spend so much.
Well, and exactly. And also, it doesn't, I mean, of course, there's many things that need more money, but it doesn't matter how much money you throw at a problem. If that money is mismanaged, there's no point.
Yeah. So what about some of the diversity of school provision? That's been a kind of a battle going on. Different students respond better in different environments sometimes. Sometimes you not just special needs within a same school, but maybe a different school that can offer different programs can be effective.
Oh, without a doubt. And the school board sets those programs. Mm-hmm. There's also the whole point of, the school board is in charge of the programs and adding more and making more choices available for parents. And that's obviously something that works. We need to make sure parents are aware of those programs and that there's also not huge lineups waiting to get into those programs for parents. The other thing that school boards could be doing that they're not doing right now is, there's a lot of charter schools that are doing really well and are doing things really well. And that's the whole point of having a charter school is, to pick something niche and do it really well. And then that model can be brought back to the CBE and the CBE can implement it. And that's not happening. We don't have to reinvent the wheel or rewrite the whole thing. We can look at what's happening in other jurisdictions, what's working and what they're doing super well and apply it to the CBE.
Yeah. So does the CBE have any kind of authority over charter schools, or are they totally separate when it comes?
Totally separate. Yeah. Charter schools are their own.
Which, again, as you said, that doesn't mean you can't learn from them or look at them as something complementary.
Absolutely.
Because it's almost an adversarial attitude held by some that charter schools are undercutting public education. And I find that problematic. I mean, there's some people who feel we should just box it all into one centralized type of system.
I personally would disagree with that. I think I'm all for choice, for parents to choose where their kids go to school and the different types of programs and different things that their kids can be a part of, which will help shape their education better. Mm-hmm.
So you're in wards 6 and 7.
That's where I'm running in wards 6 and 7.
Which part of the city is that? People should know their ward, but as I said, there's a lot of people who don't pay enough attention. So
definitely. And it's hard with school boards too, because it's 2 wards, right? Mm-hmm. Councillors just have the 1 wards. So it's actually quite a lot of ground to cover and a lot of neighborhoods and communities. So ward 6 in particular is in the southwest, basically from like Glamorgan, Discovery, Signal Hill, all the way across over to Cougar Ridge, right by COP. And all the kind of communities in between. Ward 7 is kind of a funny ward. I always joke with people about Ward 7 because I think it's like they drew all the other wards, and everything that was left over in the middle is Ward 7, because it's a little bit of the Southwest, a little bit of the Northwest, and then also the Northeast as well. Kind of from, so it's a lot kind of in the middle.
Heavy demographic changes. I mean, there's not many kids, I think, in Kensington. It's not really a young family type area.
There isn't. There's the amount of households in that particular part of Ward 7 is very low. Not a lot of kids in the household there, as opposed to, Ward 6, where they have a lot of kids in the household.
But to vote on the trustee thing, you don't have to have kids in the system.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And I always, that's the number one thing I get door knocking is people say, oh, my kids are grown. They're not in a system. I don't have kids. I have grandkids. But, everyone, your taxes still go there. You're still a community stakeholder. And, these children are the next workforce. It does matter. And everyone should have a voice in shaping public education.
Yeah, I mean, those are the kids that are going to be filling government and filling the places that are taking care of you when you're in your role as a senior and so on. And if you haven't taken care of them now, you might be in for a rough retirement later. It's in our interest to be engaged, even if your kids aren't there. I just wanted to clarify that, because some people feel, well, again, as you said, my kids aren't in it and it doesn't matter. Well, it does.
Yeah, and actually another thing at the doors too is people are asking, like, is it on the ballot? Is it separate? So when you get your ballot, when you go to vote in the election, you get your mayor candidates, your councillors, and then they ask you public or separate or Catholic, right?
Mm-hmm. And then so when you, let's say presumably you win your seat on the board, I guess what sort of approach you can be bringing to it? One of the problems we've seen before, if people might not know Alberta history, Danielle Smith got her first electoral start as a school board member in Calgary.
Yes, I did know that.
That was such a disaster that the province ended up stepping in and dissolving that particular school board, because they were all at each other's throats and fighting the whole time. And to this day, I think they're still all pointing fingers at each other as to whose fault that was.
Sure.
But it really takes a different kind of patience and working as a group if you want to get anything done.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point of a governing board is you're all there to represent all the different students. And the board would need to work together to bring about actual change.
So, when you're campaigning, what's the thing you're hearing the most at the doors then with people with concerns for the system right now? People
are really worried about teachers. I've also met a lot of teachers at the door, and every single time that I talk to a teacher, they don't say pay is their number one. What their number one thing that teachers are telling me in particular is classroom complexity needs to be dealt with. They're not being supported in the classroom for all of the different complex needs that come up, right? They don't have enough EAs. There's not enough of them to go around. Classroom sizes is obviously at the top of everyone's list. And now, most recently, lots of parents are obviously worried about the strike.
Yeah, well, it's an inconvenience to say the least. I mean, I know people say, well, school isn't supposed to be your babysitters. Well, yes and no. We pay a lot of money and they're supposed to be entrusted to her. We can count on them managing our children for a certain amount of hours every week. And it can be very disruptive for people on a fixed income to suddenly have.
Of course. And there hasn't been a strike since 2001. So no one's actually dealt with it at this level, right? The closest thing to that would be COVID when students are at home. But a strike, it is a big deal. And I think for the teachers to have got to this point that they're ready to strike, like I said before, there's a lot of failures on different levels and teachers aren't feeling heard. They need to be heard. They need to be supported in the classroom.
Well, let's hope it's averted. I mean, again, if a break in as we saw with COVID, a break in the schooling for the kids just doesn't do them any good at all.
No, it doesn't. And I really do hope they come to agreement. But October 6th is coming up pretty quickly.
It is. And then October 6th, I mean, that might lead it to, just to remind everybody, the voting day is October 20th. Advanced polling
starts October 6th as well. Yeah.
So this election's coming up fast, and that might be a prime issue in this election is a strike going on at that time. But I mean, we have to do our part for it. So before I let you go, how do people find your campaign to help out or ask more questions?
Absolutely. So they can visit my website. It's jenniferstewartfortrustee.com. I have a number of different engagements. I'm out in the community. I'm out every weekend. I'm out multiple times a week, different areas around Ward 6 and 7. If you see me, come say hi. JenniferStewartForTrustee.com. I'd love to hear from you. I love hearing different ideas and hearing what issues and concerns are facing constituents in schools at the local level.
Excellent. Well, this is your opportunity to get out and hear people on the ground. That's what just politicians have to remember for that other 4 years once they get in what they heard during now. So now is a critical period, really,
yeah,
to communicate.
That, and I think the most important thing once you get in is to stay engaged and stay engaged and in contact with the community, because they are the people that you represent. And one of the things that I really don't like about right now with the school board in general is trustees actually aren't allowed to go into schools without being invited. So they can't just go into a school and talk to parents and teachers and community members. They have to be invited to school council meetings. And that to me just seems a little bit backwards, especially when trustees are supposed to be representing the community at large.
Yeah, getting a filtered version perhaps, and missing some of the stuff. That's interesting to hear. I didn't know that, actually.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming in to explain. And
thank you very much for having me.
I wish you the best on the campaign. Well, time's quick and fast on it.
Yeah, it's going to come up really soon. Thanks again.
Thank you. All right, guys. So yes, Jennifer Stewart, Ward 6 and 7. If you look it up, Google that name, and you will find her campaign site, and you can reach out to her. There's somebody saying vote Jen in the comments already. There, you've gained one at least already, so it's a good start. But it's every level of our democracy is underrated. We don't take part in it enough. It's one thing I admire, though I understand the headaches of it in the U.S. Whenever I travel down, my mother's American. I go to the States a lot. And there's always an election going on. There's some corners in some towns that's just always decorated with signs because they're electing everything from their county coroner to the county clerk to the sheriff. We don't elect nearly as many positions up here in Canada. And if we want to elect more of those, maybe people don't. I don't know. But if we do, we got to be taking advantage of the ones we're allowed to vote for now. And trustees is just one. And I got to admit, I'm guilty of it too. I have no idea who the trustee is down in my area. I'm going to have to look into it before voting time comes and try and make a decision. But as we discussed as well, it does impact you guys because, yeah, those kids coming up and through there, they're the ones we're going to be relying on later. It's pretty important. And that teacher strike coming in Alberta, it's looming fast. And boy, it's getting pretty heated between the Smith government and the union, which is not unusual. Listening to Jennifer, she's saying the bigger issue with teachers is, class sizes and the ability to deal with different needs of kids. But it often the teachers might say that one-on-one, but their union always just says we want more salary, we want more pension, we want more money for the teachers. Some of the impasse coming is the Smith government said, look, we offered you guys 12% and a commitment to hire 3,000 more teachers, and you told us to get stuffed. How much more do you want? And the union won't give the answer. So it seems to be an impasse. We're going to see what happens, but keep an eye on it as well. The rest of the municipal election, watch it, guys. Look at the lunatics we got, right? These city councils, this stuff. I mean, Gondek, Dave mentioned the budget and the tax increases that are hitting in the city of Calgary. These things are important everywhere. I'm down in the MD of Foothills. It sounds like a couple of the council seats actually are getting some strong contention going on down there. Pay attention. It can only do you good. And if these elected representatives don't represent you later, fire them because they get away with murder if we don't know who they are. And unfortunately, I got to take a shot at how horrible our media is, our legacy media, just to show and how you can't trust them and how bad it's gotten. Not just the self-serving part because we're independent. We don't do this sort of thing, but just it makes it difficult for elections and things like that to figure out what's right and what's wrong. Here's a beautiful example from CTV on a headline. This came up on X last night, and I was just in shock when I read it. This was the headline. Black student found hanging from a tree in Mississippi. Whoa. Whoa. Okay, so we've gone out of our way to determine the race of this person and that it's a student and he was hanging from a tree, and in Mississippi of all states. Reeks of a lynching, doesn't it? Memories of Mississippi burning in the movie and then the whole works. Holy cow, what's going on here? Well, I read the story and it still didn't say a heck of a lot except that a black guy was found hanging in a tree in a college campus down in Mississippi. I searched further and I get to, of all things, People magazine, which had a larger version of this entire story in it. And the black student was the coroner has determined that it was suicide and that the police have said there's no foul play and nobody is at risk. Typically media doesn't report on suicides. I don't know if people know that in general. There's kind of an unwritten rule. You just don't report on suicides at all, unless it's something outstanding, a celebrity or an unusual circumstance of it. Otherwise, they don't want to publicize suicides, and they don't. But CTV felt compelled. Now, to be fair, CNN put the same crappy headline out. So they used the same news wire. But I mean, every outlet can change the headlines when you're taking stuff off a wire and stuff like that, guys. What a torqued, divisive, rotten headline to put out there. They didn't, and I had an idiot on X, and there's no shortage of those, debating me on that. Well, what did you want them to write on it? Nothing. This was not reportable, particularly with a Canadian outlet. This was a tragedy. This was a student that got into a terribly bad place and committed suicide by hanging himself on a tree branch. But CTV wants to go out and make it look like the southern states are lynching young black men. That's exactly what their headline was talking about. I mean, why else? Let's just say they felt it was worth reporting on in general. Why did they even have to say black? Why did the race matter? It's just a student found hanging from a tree. But no, they had to go out of their way. Black student found hanging from a tree in Mississippi. Now, how many people didn't read further? How many people didn't look a little farther to see the context and what was happening behind that story? Instead, they were just mortified, thinking, again, we've got that racial hornet's nest going on in the southern states, and they're lynching black people again. Look, I spent a lot of time working south of the border, all over the place. I spent a lot of, there's racial issues going on down there that we don't see in Canada. And there's some divisions, and there's a lot of big problems. And you see that when it explodes in things like some of the riots that look, when things come to a head and pop. When I worked upstate New York, some of the crackers up there and the guys I had to deal with, and I can understand why some black people are pretty bloody frustrated with trying to integrate into society with a lot of the folks up there. And hey, some great people up there too. It's not just the South is part of what I'm saying. But the South has its issues as well. But it doesn't help when legacy media torques headlines like this. Think of how that must feel then. Again, if you were a young black person who read that and didn't look further, thought, oh my, they are lynching people like me because of my color in Mississippi, because you didn't get to see the rest of it. Why? Because CTV wanted to get clicks, and maybe just CTV has gotten so bad. They've been worse than CBC lately. An ideological agenda, an anti-American agenda that's been big with them, and a kissing of the liberal butts who really want to keep the division alive. It was the division between Canada and the United States that got Carney elected. I know some of my viewers and followers who disagree. I know I believe it was Trump's fault for his bloody approach to trade and the turd he threw into our electoral punch bowl up here with his ridiculous tariffs and all that led to that. But Carney took full advantage of that and won an election based on it that he went into with a minuscule amount of support. And now he subsidizes the major legacy media outlets, and those legacy media outlets want to keep him happy. Well, how do they keep him happy? Well, let's keep the division up between the United States and Canada, and let's just keep making the U.S. look like some crazed hellhole where they're lynching black people. So some clown at CTV, and it went through probably a few layers before that went out to the full headline, said, yeah, this sounds like a good idea. We'll put that out there. Cyril Arnold, one of the commenters, saying the headline is enough to trigger outrage, so the facts of the incident are lost. That's it. Your vein pops, and you see that, and you don't necessarily look farther into it. But this is bad. This isn't some backwater website or some individual's tweet or anything. This is CTV, one of the biggest media outlets in Canada, and that's the trash they're putting out. And they didn't even bury the lead. They didn't have that somewhere farther in the story that it was suicide. They didn't even put that part in their story. It's an organization I think is unfit to be in business any longer if they're going to pull crap like that. I mean, hey, we're encouraged in media to grab hold of people's eyeballs with the headlines. The Standard does it. We don't do anything like that. But sure, we'll put headlines to be catchy and try to pull people in, hoping they'll click through and read this story. But this is grossly divisive and irresponsible and misrepresenting. It is just an affront to responsible journalism. And just, I would have expected better. I would have thought, maybe I don't anymore. I don't know. Let's see. Here's a big one that came up in the Globe and Mail, and it's been coming up through CTV. Palestinian visa applications for Canadian asylum blocked without explanation, lawyer says. I thought, how am I going to respond to that? Good. We don't need them. You know, there's a whole Middle East that loves their values. Let them take them in. We've got enough. We do not need to dip into that terrorist hornet's nest and bring them here. Canada has mass immigration problems already. We need to be carrying on with immigration, but being a heck of a lot more selective with who and what trades and things like that. And once the people that come here and fit in and do well, and I tell you what, Palestinians don't fit in well anywhere. We don't need them. There's issues going on over there, but we don't need to take it in. Here's something on the good news front, kind of in a funny way. Thomas Lukasik, he's been doing his little petition in Alberta. He's the disgraced former Alberta MLA, for people who don't remember him. He was deputy premier for Alison Redford, kind of a token position. He's the one who billed Albertans for $20,000 for his personal phone bill when he was overseas at a trip to Poland. But he's been doing that Canada Forever petition for a while now. And I don't know, it's not looking very good. He keeps dodging and deking and hiding and squirming whenever somebody asks him how many signatures he's got. But now he's coming up and even saying, well, you know what? People are afraid to sign. Some people are afraid to sign. They're afraid to be seen signing this thing. Oh, what a load of crap. For one, Fabio, you are the guardian of those signatures, are you not? These are just only supposed to be going to Elections Alberta. It's not the government they don't trust then, Fabio, it's you. They aren't afraid. What, for repercussions they think they're going to get for signing a petition? Spare me. No, he's making his excuses because the petition's going to fail. He's not going to get his 300,000 signatures. He's got less than a month and a half to get it done now. And obviously the numbers aren't coming in. If the numbers were coming in, he'd be whooping and flagging and standing on rooftops and yelling about how brilliant he is and how great his petition's doing. One thing I wouldn't trust in giving some of the information to some of that, and I hope they don't do such, but you got to remember, he's obviously still has a political future in mind going on. And boy, what a database he's sure building for his own little political future, isn't he? I expect a lot of the people who took part and supported that group and signed petitions and such are going to suddenly find themselves contacted for fundraising and voting and all sorts of other things that they didn't realize that were going to come with that. Either way, it'll be interesting to see whenever in November, probably when the courts are done and the petitioning begins on the real independence question coming for a referendum in Alberta, and seeing how well the APP or how poorly they do in petitioning. This should be a warning to some of them, guys. It's not going to be easy. You're better organized than Thomas Lukasik's little group is. And you have a longer timeline, you have fewer signatures. But I tell you what, a couple 100,000 signatures in 4 months is a huge task. It's a big one. So you guys had better be remaining prepared and ready for it. Tyler Volstad saying the Forever Canada people were hounding me the other day to try to get me to sign. I'd heard from Clayton, a friend of mine down in our area. And I guess he checked out one of the Forever Canada ones down. I think it was Black Diamond. He said they parked with his wife and they just kind of watched for a bit. And what they did was held everybody up before they allowed them to sign, because they put the word out to everybody, come on out to sign. So they had about 30, 40 people in line, held them all up, wouldn't let them sign so that they could take a picture showing a big lineup. And then other than that, there really wasn't anything there. Again, welcome to media and how you don't get the whole picture. Wild Rose saying, Cory, how soon do you think we'll get our referendum? I still think it's going to happen in 2026, maybe by June. It's just a matter of how we're going to get to it. I think if the court shuts it down, I got a feeling that the Smith government's still going to allow it to happen one way or another, because she's kind of painted into a corner on it. Here's a CBC story. Let's get close things off again with our state broadcaster, which we expect very little of. So they're worse than CTV, of course, and we get to pay $1.5 billion for these guys. Here's a headline. I study climate change. This summer, it got too hot for me to do my field work. Yeah, this is a whole story about this poor young lady studying climate change. It got hot outside. I got over 30 degrees. She couldn't do it. She couldn't make it. She was going to bake like a potato. What a wimp. What a bunch of crap. Look, I'm not saying that climate change isn't necessarily happening and things are not necessarily getting warmer, but spare me. Hot weather is nothing new. You can work in it, you overpaid government simp. I worked on the Texas-Mexico border in July and August when I was a surveyor in the past. Man, I got a hell of a tan while I was down there. It's hot. Your average every day is over 40, and it's humid down there. You drink a load of water, you take a lot of breaks, and you get through it. Most of the world deals with that kind of heat on a regular basis. They don't shut down. What I see is another lazy, entitled student with their degree that came out, taught that climate change is going to fry us all, and is just making excuses not to get to work. I don't doubt she invoiced and got paid for it all. All right. Well, that's enough out of me for today, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in. The pipeline's going to be on tonight. Be sure to tune into that. We'll have a panel breaking down a bunch more of the issues going on out there. Keep an eye on all these channels. Like them, share them. John's been working great in production. We got all sorts of new stuff. Leah's been putting interviews out. Watch the Western Standard. We're breaking the news out here. We've got a newsroom covering these things. And keep tuning in. I'll see you next week at this time.